5 lessons from 2024. If it's the first time you're watching one of my videos, why do you want to listen? My name is Shuwel Ahmed. I started off growing up in council housing in the UK, went on to study at Cambridge and Harvard University, learned about business in a $200 billion business while living across 3 continents, and I also started and scaled my own multi-million pound business. I'm giving away this information for free to you. 5 lessons from 2024. Let's get into the video. Lesson number 1 from 2024, realizing that my purpose is to learn, grow, and give. And if I'm not involved in activities that are hitting those 3 areas, then I'm terrible company to be around. Now, let me explain a bit more about this lesson number 1. If I'm not learning, growing, or giving, I'm generally not in a good mood. Realized last year where I had 12 months of very contrasting experience, 6 months of the year where I was fully focused on my business, but I had more time than I am typically used to, which is a good thing, but also has its downsides. And then the second half of last year where I relocated to the US, started my 1-year master's program at Harvard University, and had a lot of my business stuff ongoing in the background. Now, to paint a bit of a picture for you how last year looked like, in the first 6 months of the year, we did 1 round of real estate investments where we took ownership of 13 units in the southeast of England, and we were expanding this to 20 units. Despite that real estate deal, raising funds, working with some great investors, I did actually end up having more time than I was used to. Now, this is probably a good thing from the outside, but for myself, having more time, you end up filling it with travel, with spending time with family, spending time with friends. But then ultimately, I still felt like I had so much more to give. And despite doing things I was very fulfilled with, having my own business, looking at other investment opportunities, I still found myself having more time than I would have liked. And I think during that period, I realized that for me at this stage of my career, I need to be fully involved with multiple projects that are engrossing a lot of my time. And if I'm not in that period of my life, then I actually don't feel that good. So that was one reflection from the first half of the year. And if I compare that to the second half of the year, where I got into Harvard and I got this opportunity to relocate to America, it is actually the 6th or 7th time I've relocated countries in the last 10, 11 years. And just moving into a high growth, high stress environment was exactly what I needed to reinvigorate everything again. And even though I ended up being in a situation where, through studying on this program, and I'm sure I'll go into detail in another video later on, I ended up having to study 40 to 50 hours a week, networking events, meeting new people, learning about different topics I have a lot of interest in. And shifting into that environment, you would think that actually the other things, the other investments and the things I was looking at would go down. But actually, it forced me to optimize my time even more. And the real estate projects here in the UK progressed even further with me out of the country. I also ended up making 4 equity investments while I was studying in the US, and then also 2 debt investments in the second half of the year as well. So if I compare the 2 periods of the first 6 months and the second 6 months, it just confirmed to me again that I need to be, for me personally, in an environment where I'm learning, growing, and giving. And when I'm in that environment where I'm doing this to the maximum that I can, then I feel better, I do a lot better work, and I can help even more people around me as well. So that first half of the year, even though I had more spare time, more time to travel with my wife and do all these amazing things, I didn't feel as good compared to the second half of the year where I was feeling like I was at the edge of my maximum capacity. I was studying a lot. I had a lot of business and things ongoing and a lot of investments ongoing, but then the results were also a lot better in the second half of the year. So that's why actually having that period reminded me again that, okay, get back into the intensity, get back into the high volume of output, and get back into that flow again, because when you are in that flow, the results are a lot better. So that is lesson number 1 from last year. It's more of a reminder. When I'm learning, growing, and giving, I'm really involved and I'm really working into my purpose. So try to continue to stay in that environment for as long as you can, as much as you can. Lesson number 2, you have to pay the ticket to play the game. This was a realization that I came to again around midway through 2024, where I got this opportunity to relocate to America. Now, as mentioned, I grew up in the UK, pretty humble beginnings, and I was never planning to leave the UK. But at the age of 21, I got the opportunity to move to Switzerland for a summer internship in this large, amazing company. So I thought, okay, let's make the most of this opportunity and see where it goes. Now, after leaving the UK at the age of 21, moving to Switzerland, over a 10-year period working in this very large company, I got the opportunity to live in Japan, all around Europe, live and work and travel and do all these things in all these amazing countries around the world, learn about business in these different cultures and environments, and also build an amazing network of people that I could work with, people that I hired, and also great leaders that I could learn from as well. But during all of that, a sacrifice was made, right? I couldn't spend time with family, couldn't spend time with friends as much as I wanted in other places. I missed a lot of friends' weddings and events, time with my parents here in the UK, but those sacrifices were made. That was the price I had to pay to play the game that I'm playing now. Now, all of these, in hindsight, whenever I've had to pay a price for something, the result has always been worth it. And last year I went through another period where I had to pay a price, right? I had to pay the ticket to play the game. Now, the game that I'm trying to play now is I want to look at much bigger opportunities. And at the moment, the US provides a lot of large opportunities, especially in the healthcare realm. So I got to the point where, okay, what's the ticket? What's the price I'm going to have to pay? So relocating to America now, even though we've got great real estate investments here in the UK, I'm very settled here in the UK as well after relocating back recently in the last couple of years. Everything here is actually pretty stable, and financially I'm in a much stronger position than I've ever been. But then do I want to go to America where there are much bigger opportunities? There's an opportunity to also continue my own development and to also further grow. But that is a sacrifice that I had to think about. Is that a sacrifice that I wanted to make? And if I think about in the past, whenever I've had to make a sacrifice, the result has always exceeded expectations. So this was another scenario again where, okay, recognize the sacrifice that's going to be made. I'm relocating to America. I'm having to fly back to London at least every month, every 3-4 weeks. So it's a lot of travel. I will be away from my family. My wife has stayed here in the UK as well. So there's all these other factors that I need to recognize that they are a sacrifice. But again, with that amazing support system in place and having faith that in the future these opportunities will make a lot of sense, then it became a no-brainer. And I had to remind myself again, you pay the ticket to play the game. And if you really want to play the game, whatever that game is for you, then think about what's the price that you're going to have to pay. It may be capital, it may be investing in yourself, it may be time away from loved ones. Whatever it is, recognize that you do have to pay the ticket to play the game. And as long as it's worth it for you, then the outcome is what you want it to be. So that was just another reminder last year. Lesson number 2, that you have to pay the ticket to play the game. Lesson number 3, which is around reinforcing the foundations at all times. So during this process where we were going through the real estate investment cycle and I was looking at potentially relocating to the US and looking at some other equity investment as well, I was able to catch up with a mentor of mine and share with him, look, this is actually the first time since getting married, actually, that we would be having a long distance relationship. And it's also the first time in a few years after coming back to the UK, buying my parents their dream home, spending a lot of time with my family, with my brothers, etc., that I'll be moving away again. So are there any tips and recommendations that you can give to me for someone who's going to have to manage a long distance relationship, being away from family, anything that you'd recommend? And that mentor gave some great advice, actually. He said, whenever you're in a different time zone or a different area or just away from your loved ones, however much time you think you are giving them, whether it's on the phone, on FaceTime, on message, even if you think you're giving them enough, give them even more. Now, I'm not someone who typically likes to be on my phone. I don't actually like to be on the phone and calling people all the time. I much prefer to have quick messages, or if I'm sitting down to reply to messages, have a conversation at that point rather than communicate throughout the day. But then I recognize with my family, with my loved ones, with people around me, they need my presence, they need my support, and they also want to give me the space to grow in the US for this next chapter as well. But that advice that that mentor gave me about always going above and beyond, and when you think you're giving enough attention, always give more, has actually proved to be invaluable. Despite being across the Atlantic and spending majority of my time in the US, and my relationship with my wife, with my brothers, with my family has probably never been stronger because of the fact that I'm making this extra effort. I'm taking the time to fly back every month, fly back to London every 3-4 weeks to spend time together. The time that I'm spending here in the UK, we try to make even more of that time by going out, spending quality time, having meals together, etc. And then when I'm in the US, I try to speak to my wife at least once per day, and then speak to my parents and my family, who are very important to me, almost on a weekly basis, if not once or twice a week as well. So having that foundation means a lot and has allowed me to also thrive in this move that I've been able to execute on over the last 6 months. So, whatever that foundation is for you, whether it's family, whether it's me time, whether it's your mental health, whether it's your physical health, whatever it is, it's important to ensure that that foundation is not ignored and you continue to reinforce that foundation as much as you can. Because I think now actually moving to the US and spending this time going back and forth, if I didn't have that foundation, then the experience I've had in the US so far would not have been as great as it has been. So that's a lesson number three, which is reinforce the foundations of your life at all times and never forget about them. Now, lesson number four, environment is everything. Now, as I mentioned, I grew up in the UK. I wasn't planning on leaving the UK, but I got this opportunity to relocate to Switzerland at the age of 21 for a 3-month internship. And when I relocated, it opened up a whole new world of opportunities, leaders to interact with, and just showed me so much more of what's possible. Now, at that point, I was only supposed to move for 3 months, and I ended up staying out of the country for more than 11 years. And through that time, I was able to live in Switzerland, spent 2 amazing years living in Tokyo in Japan, moved back to Switzerland, spent a few years in Sweden, in Stockholm, in Denmark, and then coming back to the UK before now relocating recently to the US. In all of those scenarios, the reason why I've moved is because a growth opportunity has come around. So whether it was a career progression, whether it was relocating back to the UK to establish my business over the last couple of years in terms of real estate investments, wherever the move has been, has always been driven by growth and personal growth, professional, business, career, etc. And I got to a point a couple of years ago where after relocating back to the UK, we got our business well established, our real estate portfolio was scaling. I was financially in a much better position than I've ever been my whole life. And I really worked to be in the window of my life. I found that the personal growth was starting to stagnate. Even though I was learning a lot and investing a lot and meeting some great entrepreneurs, I did realize that, okay, the environment that I'm in now is not necessarily a high growth environment. So where do I go next? And this is where the opportunity to move to America, apply for Harvard for a 1-year master's program, learn about negotiations, leadership, the American business model, healthcare innovation, etc., came about. And after moving last summer, it just reinvigorated this feeling again of high growth, being around a lot of very smart and bright people, and also just learning about the US ecosystem, which I believe is a very exciting time as we record this as well. So it just reinforced that lesson to me again, that environment is everything. And wherever you are in life, or whatever stage you are in, if you get the opportunity and if you really want to grow, I would try and move to that environment wherever the growth that you are seeking is. Because once you're in that environment and the tide is pushing you to the direction that you want to go towards, then it becomes invaluable and priceless. And however stretched and crazy and busy that time feels in that moment, when you look back, you realize why you grew. And some of the best relationships and everything have come from those periods. And the last lesson from 2024 is lesson number 5, which is stay away from the dream killers. Now, dream killers, these are people that typically are going to drain your energy. These are people that are typically going to speak about people more than ideas. And these are people that are probably thinking more about a problem for every solution rather than the solution-minded people. Now, I've been very fortunate from the friends that I grew up with, from my family, from the people that I've been able to meet living and working across the world, and also even in the entrepreneurship world as well. A lot of people have been very supportive, positive, high energy, and great collaborators. But naturally, when you move to a new environment, you're meeting a full range of people, different personality types, different backgrounds, different cultures. Now, in that period, when you're moving somewhere new, naturally, you may meet people that you think you get along well, but then they end up having traits that are not necessarily good to be around. And moving again to the US, to a new place, I've gone through that process again of building some great relationships, but naturally being conscious that some people are actually having a negative impact on my energy. So this is where it's important to stay away from the dream killers. Whatever they're working through, whatever they're doing, whatever issues they have, leave it up to them to resolve, but stay focused on the mission. Find the people that you really gel well with and the people that really give you energy rather than drain energy away from you. So that's just lesson number 5. That was another reminder last year, relocating again to a new place and meeting so many amazing people on the majority, but there were still a few people that you have to recognize that you need to have the boundary, you need to have the space, and you need to have that distance to just ensure that you can get to where you want to go to in a good and healthy way. So that was lesson number 5: stay away from the dream killers. Right, guys, so that's video number 2. I hope I'm moving through this okay. I'm not so comfortable sitting in front of the camera and speaking like this. My producer, I'm sure, will do an amazing job editing this video. As we go through this, I do commit to try and give as much free value to you for following, for hopefully subscribing, and for sharing. If this has been a good video for you or any feedback, please reach out to me directly or drop me a message on any platform or leave a comment on the video as well. I look forward to recording the next video soon and with the help of my amazing team. Thank you so much and see you at the next one.